here to tell us a little bit more about what we can expect at the Tourism Indaba and also whether we can get tourists to spend a lot more money when they enter South Africa. We have Thulani Nzima, the CEO of SA Tourism. Thank you, sir, for joining us on eNCA. What can we expect out of the Tourism Indaba this year? I mean, is this our window to get people to spend a lot more and to showcase what we've got?
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. Yes, this is an opportunity for us to showcase beyond just our safari experience, what this country has to offer. It is also a platform to showcase Africa's products, not just limited to South Africa. Indaba has become the flagship for the African continent to bring in the buyers and the product owners here to get together. Now, what can we expect in this edition of Indaba? We started yesterday with the Bloggers Conference, the first of its kind in the world and making history in Africa. The guys were going crazy and we've done very well. In fact, there was only room for standing positions, the way it was oversubscribed. Today, we launched the Heritage and Culture Pavilion. It's very important that we begin to respond to research that tells us that 40% of people who choose destination would like to go to destinations that resonates with them, that has emotional connections with them, and making sure that it's beyond just simple indulgence. So they want to have expression and interact with the people. And you have seen us showcasing the 8 heritage sites that we have in this country, and that's very important.
Okay, so what's fascinating is that we've got tourism numbers up over 10% last year, but spending only increased by 3.3%, as I mentioned, to 76 billion rand. Do you find that there's too much of a big discrepancy between the two numbers? Surely there should be a better ratio that's playing out there.
Yes, the increase is actually 7.3%, from 71 billion to 76 billion. You are correct in saying a 10% growth in tourism should actually have matched the spend to about the same number. What happened is that all the markets have shown an increase in average spend. All the markets across but one. The one market that did not show an increase is the Africa land market. Because of its high weight in terms of the contribution to the numbers, about 6 million of the 9 million tourists come from regional Africa. In fact, it's 72% of our recorded tourists last year came from Africa. Now, what has happened is that their average spend has decreased from an average of 13,000 per trip to 11,000, and that has weighed down the expense considerably.
And this is the most important thing, because Africa is still the most important tourist market for South Africa. What I want to know is, a country like Lesotho, we get 1.6 million people from Lesotho entering South Africa every year, but the population is about 2 million. So basically almost every single person in Lesotho comes across the border. Can you explain this?
Yes, South Africa is quite an interesting case to study. Firstly, a high percentage of Basutos have got passports because they have a necessity to travel across to South Africa to buy milk and buy bread every day. The second thing is that most of them actually have links in South Africa. They either have property that they are renting out, they will come and collect the rental here. Some of them will come here occasionally to collect pensions. So yes, there will be that movement, but you must understand that in terms of your count for tourists, it doesn't matter how many times you personally come into the country. Each time you come in here, we count you. So those people who come here either to buy bread, buy milk, and spend the night, then they will be counted as a tourist. Those who come here to collect their pensions, as long as they spend the night, by definition of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, they all then qualify to be counted as tourists.
Let's also touch on what tourists we need to focus on. Should we be focusing on the people from the UK and Germany? US numbers also looking pretty good. How do we get them to spend a lot more money?
Well, I think for us, the important thing is that we have learned lessons in the past year, that our core markets of Europe did not yield the results. We started focusing on the regional African markets. So we do want to increase our footprint in the regional African market. In fact, they spend a lot more. Most of the markets in Africa are dollar-based markets. So they spend a lot more. If you look at what the Angolans are spending, they're spending in dollars. You look at the Nigerians, they're spending in dollars. So for us, it's tourism from any part of the world, spending money. We're focusing on 2 key things. We're focusing on markets that are going to give us volumes and markets that are going to give us revenue. So that average spend is very important. In China, for instance, the average spend in China by now has surpassed everybody. It's averaging 18,500. It's even higher than the Germans. Most of the Chinese coming into our country by sheer numbers is big. We're not even getting 1% of the tourism. So we'll focus a lot more in markets of that nature.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Much appreciated for your time. And of course, tourist numbers out of China increasing by 66%. So a very important market there, and reiterated by the CEO of South African Tourism, Thulani Nzima.
News that moves. eNCA.com.